everything that Fender makes has a certain quality and sound that we are very proud of, and that's the thing that worries us the most. Is we want to make sure that when somebody buys a Fender product that they're getting the real deal.
Right.
And so that's why mostly we just discourage and frown upon copying, is because we want you to have the real thing.
So lately, a lot of people have been talking about the odd and strangely threatening video that Gibson released recently. This is the one where they were talking about how serious they are about protecting their designs and intellectual property. Now, I'm not going to have any of that video here, but I will put some links below in the video description in case you haven't seen it. Now, that Gibson video got a big response from people, almost entirely negative. In this video, I've got an interview that I want to show you guys. I did this recently over at the Thomann Gearhead University event, and this interview is with Allen Abbassi, and he's the Senior Product Development Manager at Fender. In this interview, we talk about counterfeit Fender guitars, the headstock, trademarks, and how all that stuff affects the company. First of all, just the fact that Allen was willing to sit down and talk about this very controversial topic with me was really cool. But the other part of this is that although Fender is still very serious about protecting their trademarks, they seem to have a much healthier and more realistic attitude about it than Gibson does. After watching the interview, be sure to let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Alright guys, here we go. Here's my interview with Allen Abbassi from Fender. Alright guys, here we are at Thomann Gearhead University 2019, and I'm sitting down with Allen Abbassi from Fender.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thanks a lot for being here. And he is the Senior Product Development Manager, and I've got kind of a, kind of a weird question for you, but something that's...
I'll give you a weird answer.
Oh, perfect.
I'll speak like this. Well, actually, what I'm trying to say... No.
So, it's kind of a controversial topic, but these days... there are a lot of fake or counterfeit guitars coming out of China, and these are, I mean, they say Fender on the head, it's not just the shape, but it says Fender. Sometimes it says made in the USA. In some cases, it even has a serial number that's been copied off of a real guitar.
Right.
And, they range from pieces of junk to something that's playable. I mean, some of the ones that I've seen and played, it can be a good guitar, but it doesn't feel like a real Fender. I mean, the radius of the neck is wrong and things like that. And for somebody who's familiar with the guitars, they might be able to notice right away that there's some weird things about it.
Right.
But, from your perspective, I mean, you're, one of the guys at Fender. I mean,
yeah.
How do you guys view that stuff? I mean, do you feel like is it a big problem for the company? Does it hurt the brand? What do you...
Well, obviously, we discourage it. We don't like it when people copy our intellectual property, obviously. Copycatting is kind of the sincerest form of flattery.
Sure.
But yeah, we definitely don't like it. I don't think... ironically, we're selling more Strats and Tellys than we ever have. How much the copycats are actually affecting us is hard to quantify, but we absolutely discourage it. We enforce our intellectual property fiercely, whenever we can, and we don't like our customers. The main thing is the customer getting a fake.
Right.
We spend a lot of time making sure that every Fender has the same level of quality, right down to the the $200 Squire all the way up to the $4,000 custom shop. Everything that Fender makes has a certain quality and sound that we are very proud of, and that's the thing that worries us the most. Is we want to make sure that when somebody buys a Fender product that they're getting the real deal.
Right.
And so that's why mostly we just discourage and frown upon copying, is because we want you to have the real thing. And part of the reason people buy Fender is for the feel and the sound of it. And if it's not made by Fender, it doesn't have that feel and sound. And so for these, for the copycat guys to be kind of tricking people it's just kind of awful. And we absolutely frown upon that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a long list of reasons why it's bad. I mean, obviously it's breaking a variety of laws.
Right.
And, customs regulations and of course the trademarks and that kind of stuff. And you highlighted what is also my biggest concern, the big problem of that guitar might get resold on the used market and sort of lost, and then, bought and sold again, and the people involved might not even realize that it's a fake, but it's still being spread around and then potentially damaging the brand.
Yeah.
On the other side of it, the other sort of side of the argument is I've heard people talk about, and this is stretching a bit, but, well, maybe they'll buy one of these and then they, the hardware is not any good, the electronics are not any good. They end up buying a bunch of genuine Fender parts to put into the guitar.
Right.
Obviously, that doesn't eliminate any of the legal problems.
Right.
If somebody resells that guitar, they're guilty of counterfeiting.
Right.
But, I mean, do you think there's any truth to that? I mean...
Probably a little bit, Again, I think the issue is that, it's really horrible for a player if they buy an instrument that they think's a Fender and it's a fake.
Right.
That's really what we worry about. We don't want our name on anything that's not a real Fender.
Yeah.
Because, again, we go to great lengths to make sure every guitar has the same level of quality no matter what price point you're buying. And the fakes, honestly, a lot of times just fall way, way short of the quality mark. Yeah. So you're probably right that people buy parts and maybe upgrade their instruments, but we would rather they just bought a real Fender, and we would rather that the other companies... There's a lot of companies out there today doing new shapes and doing really great stuff with electric guitars, and we would just rather have all those people that are copying us just kind of maybe come up with their own designs.
Yeah. I mean, aside from the outright, copies and fakes, then there are, sort of a related issue where somebody might use the Fender headstock.
Right.
Pretty exact,
Yeah.
And they might put a different brand on it, so at least somebody doesn't think it's a Fender. But then there's still issues there. I won't name names, but I mean, I've seen, Asian companies, they bring out a new company.
Right.
They bring out a guitar, it's got the Fender headstock.
Yeah.
I see 6 months go by, and all of a sudden the headstock has a very different shape.
Yeah.
And I imagine that, they got a talking to or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Stratocaster, Telecaster, Jazz Bass, Precision Bass, Jazzmaster, Jaguar, Mustang, all these distinctive headstock shapes absolutely belong to Fender as far as intellectual property. Like I said, we're very precious about our brand and what it means for our customers, and that's why we do that.
Yeah. Well, obviously it's a sensitive topic. I really appreciate you talking about it, and thanks very much.
Of course.
All right. All right, guys. Now, what did you think of that? Now, again, I really want to thank Allen for sitting down with me. This is a very controversial topic. Not a lot of people want to discuss this. It was really cool of him to sit down and be willing to go through it with me. My big takeaway from this interview is that although, of course, Fender wants to protect their intellectual property, their number one priority is the customer getting a good product at the end of the day. Talking with Allen, it seemed like that was really the company's top priority, as opposed to just protecting their legacy. Obviously, in regards to the video that Gibson released recently, a lot of people were pretty upset with the way that Gibson presented themselves in that video. Fender and Gibson are always thought of as sort of the big two guitar manufacturers, and I'm really glad that I had this interview so we could kind of see how the two companies have different attitudes on this topic. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the interview. I want to give a big shout out to the crew over at Thomann for filming that interview for me. As always guys, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you want to, feel free to check out my Patreon page. I'll put some links down below in the video description. Alright guys, see you next time.